All right, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Jen Romano Bergstrom, the president of the User Experience Professionals Association International organization. We're really excited to be here today with the Pratt Institute School of Information. This group was our very first student chapter, so we're really excited to hear from them today about things that have worked well, things they've learned, what it was like to get the student chapter up and running, and the support they have received through the school to have this organization running. Before we get started, I would like to just say a couple quick housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please use the GoToWebinar portal there to put your questions, and we'll have lots of time for Q&A after the group does a short presentation. And this is being recorded, so if you wanted to share with anybody after the session, we'll have that available for you. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about UXPA, please do check out our website, uxpa.org. We have lots going on, lots of resources that we bring to our members. Things like this webinar here. We also have a series of short courses. We have a number of publications, including a magazine and a peer-reviewed journal. So I invite you to check all of those things out. We're also busy prepping for our 2018 conference, which will be taking place in June in Puerto Rico. So check out uxpa2018.org for more information about that. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the group that is doing our webinar today. So we have Craig MacDonald, Mary Ellen Curley, Charles Delabovi, Joe Polanco, and Arushi Jaiswal, all from the Pratt Institute School of Information. Turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Jen. This is Craig MacDonald. I'm the faculty advisor of the UXPA at Pratt Student Group. I'm an associate professor here at Pratt. And I'm going to start by telling the story of kind of how we got here to where we are today. And there are really two parts to the story. The first part is about how we got started with this idea of a UX student group and a UXPA chapter. And the second part of the story is sort of now that we're established as a group, what are the kinds of things that I can do as a faculty advisor and the role that the group plays within our UX curriculum. So to start back at the beginning, when I got to Pratt, it was back in fall 2012, there was a single program in Library and Information Science. The UX courses, there were a few on the books, but they were really just elective courses for library science students. But I immediately found that there were students here who wanted more UX stuff. They wanted more content, wanted more experience, more exposure, and some of them wanted to go into UX careers. And so to try to deliver this, the students were requesting that there would be more professional development talks, or there would be workshops that were incorporated into the class, into specific class sessions, but I realized that that was not going to be the best approach because we already had so much content in the classes. So I saw an opportunity to do a little bit more. So what we did was we started small. We just sort of floated the possibility of having a weekly or a monthly student interest group. We just come and we talk about UX topics, UX ideas. We just sort of get together to see who else is interested in this topic. And that became a really galvanizing moment because there were way more students interested in this than we had even realized. So we then formed a email discussion list. At the time, it was really sharing relevant local UX events, job internship information, opportunities to work on projects, useful resources or articles that I had come across or other students had come across. And that really became a kind of rallying point for students who were interested in this topic. And then what was really fascinating from my perspective was that with very little guidance from me, the students really started to self-organize. They created a hierarchy, they created co-chairs, an executive committee, they developed a logo, a social media presence, and eventually they wrote a set of bylaws and a constitution and realized that, you know, if we want to do this right, we have to get official recognition from our institution. So they applied to become an official student group at Pratt, which would allow them to actually get funding for some activities. And that was a big moment because it allowed them to do even more stuff that they could really organize and host on their own. And that was in fall 2013. When we first started doing these events and in this group, there were really a collaboration between me and the students at the time. You know, they didn't really have an idea of what kinds of events to do. So I would sort of give them some seed ideas. You know, I could make a contact, professional contact, and say, hey, they want to come and give a talk, and they could organize a talk. They could then go out and find people to serve on panels, alumni panels, or professional panels. They found people to come and do workshops focused on skill building. I think our first workshop was actually how to use OmniGraffle to make wireframes. They also organized tours of local UX companies. We had tours at places like Bloomberg and Etsy and Google. And that was really what kind of created the momentum when students realized that what this group could really be. And that was sort of over the next year or two, they became sort of a regular presence. They introduced the idea of portfolio critiques. We did some design exercises and design slam events. And it became a regular thing enough that it was kind of going on its own. And then we had a really big opportunity last year in the fall. At the time, we were really working with a very small group of students. I would say maybe 7 or 8 at a time who were really interested in UX. But we launched a new master's program in fall 2016 in information experience design. And our first cohort was about 12 students. And that basically gave us the most students we'd ever had at any time who were really interested in this topic. And it created an opportunity. It created a real critical mass that we could really push this thing forward. And at the same time, we were also looking for a way, or I was actually looking for a way to get more visibility and more awareness of the group. Because at the time, we only had student groups that were affiliated with other professional groups. We had a Special Libraries Association, American Library Association, ASIST, the Association for Information Science and Technology, and that was sort of where the branding came into play. And so I started looking and working with the time the president and the incoming president to say, we need to find a place that we can really go and get this, make this really a more concrete thing that people can refer to. And that's where we came across the UXPA opportunity. Charles is going to actually talk about that process in a little bit, but that really is how we got started, is that we didn't just start off by saying we want to create a UXPA chapter. We had already had interest and had been doing activities, and it was the UXPA affiliation that was what I think really brought it to the next level. It gave us some catch-it, a little bit of a branding recognition, and allowed us to really grow in scope and really in our ambition of what we can do. So today, moving into the second part of at least my story, my role has really become as the advisor, really supporting students' growth. And the 3 big pieces of this are that by having this group and a really strong group, I can use the activities that they do on a regular basis to supplement what we're doing in the class. Things that they can do outside of class. They can spend more time with professionals. They can go deeper onto specific projects or ideas or concepts. They can have dedicated skill building workshops that I can then push my students to and say, if you want to learn how to use Sketch, or you want to learn how to use Framer, or go deep dive on some topic like virtual reality, the student group is hosting those events and they can do that as a supplement. The second thing that I can do is I can leverage my own professional contacts. Anyone who's been around the UX industry for a long time knows that everyone in the UX is not just so friendly, but every time they learn that I'm associated with a program, they approach me and say, I really want to be involved with students. I would love to come back and work with students, to mentor students, to talk to them. And that's where I can say, you know, here are some ideas, here are some projects we can work on, and then I can connect them with the student group, and they can take the lead on making it a thing, making it an event. So that's been a really helpful way of sort of growing our own community and growing what the students can do. And the third piece, which I think is actually the most important, is that I think it's very important as a faculty member to give students ownership of the group and have them feel like it's theirs, especially at the early phases of the group as it was forming. I would make clear that it was never my student group. It wasn't my thing. It was theirs. And they felt responsible for the overall direction and the shape because they really were responsible. They were the ones deciding what they wanted to be, who they wanted to be, what types of events they wanted to do. Of course, the key here was having dedicated and energetic students who were willing to do that work. But that actually wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. They mostly self-selected, and there were only occasional times where I had to kind of prod somebody to say, hey, I think you'd be really good at this. You should probably go up for an officer position. One thing I think may come up is that there's definitely a churn in terms of the leadership positions. This is a short program. It's 2 years. And so no officer sticks around really for more than about a year. So especially in the early stages, this is important in terms of building momentum and keeping consistency, is that my role as advisor was to just sort of make sure that there is a transition plan in place, that the old officers are talking to the new officers, and it's just kind of a constant presence above that can kind of make sure that things are moving on and moving forward in a way that they can and sort of progress. That is less important now that the group is established, firmly established, and there's a really strong set of guidelines and practices that have been established, but early on especially that was very important. So that's it for my section. I'm now going to turn it over to Charles, who's going to talk more about the actual process of initiating the group.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Charles Delabovi. I'm excited to be here today, and I'm thrilled that you're able to join us. Just some quick information about me. I received a Master of Science degree in Information Experience Design from Pratt Institute last spring. I was also the president of UXPA Pratt during the spring 2017 semester. As Craig mentioned, I'll be talking to you today about how we became a UXPA student chapter. I'm hoping that once you've learned how we established our chapter, you'll be inspired to do the same. Forming a UXPA student chapter is a really very easy way to make a positive impact on your institution, one that will continue to benefit the student and alumni populations for years to come. I wanted to start off my section just really quickly thanking Professor Craig MacDonald, Kate Meisner, and Brian Mills. First, as you just heard from Craig, he essentially introduced us to the UXPA and was responsible for the concept of our forming a UXPA student chapter. He's also acted as advisor and advocate for our group since it began as an unaffiliated student organization in 2013. His importance to us cannot be understated, and we really couldn't do it without him. Second is Kate Meisner, who actually graduated spring of 2017 as well. Kate initiated the process of our becoming affiliated with UXPA. She was our group's president during the transition process, and in addition to helping adapt our bylaws, she also set deadlines to ensure we stayed on track. Third is UXPA's current director of chapters, Brian Mills, who at the time of our transition was the regional director of North America. Brian provided all the materials we needed to form our student chapter, guided us through every step of the process. He was a pleasure to work with, and he was just a really nice guy. So this is the origin story of UXPA. I just wanted to start this, I guess, subsection by saying just a quick disclaimer. Just that while we hope our process for establishing the UXPA student chapter can be used as a guide to establish your own chapter, it's important to follow the guidance of your regional director, as the process may vary based on region, new chapter formation guidelines, etc. So as Craig mentioned previously, our group began as an unaffiliated student organization in 2013. The name of that organization was Pratt UXIA. Also, as he had mentioned, essentially we were the only student organization without an affiliation. To remedy this, Craig introduced the idea of our becoming affiliated with UXPA International. Both Kate and the rest of the officers at the time were all very excited about that idea. And that occurred in the summer of 2016 when I actually held the Vice President of Records Officer position. The following fall, Kate asked me to begin the process of establishing our UXPA affiliation. So what I did was I began by locating and carefully reviewing 2 documents published by UXPA International. These documents were actually made available on their website. The first document was UXPA's chapter manual. The second document was a guide to chapter formation titled Forming a Local Chapter. The chapter manual is actually a comprehensive document that includes a variety of information, including how chapters are defined, formed, organized, and run. Forming a local chapter, as I'm sure you could ascertain from the title, is more of a how-to on forming your own local chapter. So having reviewed the documents and having them readily available throughout the process was extremely helpful as we went forward. Excuse me. My next step was to reach out to the director of our particular region via email, and that's the UXPA. At this time, as I said, it was Brian Mills. So I contacted Brian Mills at UXPA, and in his very prompt reply, he outlined who we would need to have in place as we moved forward. This would include 3 to 5 individuals interested in helping with the launch. These individuals would produce the founding documents, make up the interim board of our student chapter, and they would also need to be current UXPA International members in good standing. So luckily for us, we actually already had 4 student officers in place, all of whom were more than willing to become UXPA International members. So no further action was needed with regard to this particular item. And essentially, because we already had a board of 4, as I mentioned, Brian informed us that we would only need 6 additional UXPA International members in good standing to form our team of founding members. Just for your information, a total of 10 UXPA International members in good standing are needed to start your student chapter. These founding members would review and approve our founding documents, including our bylaws, which is the document that defines our student chapter and how it will be run, the chapter charter, which is a document that makes explicit our student chapter's relationships to UXPA International, including rules and responsibilities that must be abided by in order to maintain our status as an officially recognized student chapter in good standing. And the third document is actually a petition to form a local UXPA chapter. This is a document that serves as an official request to form a local UXPA student chapter. In addition to outlining who we would need to have in place, Brian also provided sample documents that we could use to adapt to, into our founding documents. These include the bylaws of the recently formed Kansas City chapter, the chapter charter of the recently formed Kansas City chapter, and a blank petition to form a local UXPA chapter. So all those were provided for us. We really just needed to make them fit into our particular institution. So we began by updating our bylaws so they would be in line with that of a UXPA student chapter. The biggest changes we needed to make related to funding, focus, and fealty. Usually funding for UXPA chapters is generated through membership fees and ticket sales. Since we were affiliated with an academic institution, specifically Pratt, most of our funding would actually be coming from our institution's student activity fees. Also, Pratt UXIA's primary focus was current students. As a student chapter of the UXPA, our focus would need to expand in order to include more practicing professionals. Specifically for us, it would be Pratt alumni working in the field. We also needed to stipulate that members of our student chapter could be members of one additional chapter. Given our location, this most likely would have been the NYC UXPA chapter. At the time of our formation, maintaining membership in more than one chapter was prohibited. And again, that may change based on the fact that more student chapters are forming. But when we completed, our final bylaws document consisted of 4 primary articles. These were definition and purpose, operational relationships with UXPA International, operations, and amendments. And after completing our bylaws, we sent out an email to the Pratt UXIA and Pratt School of Information listservs in order to find individuals interested in becoming founding members of our student chapter. We included the stipulation that they must be UXPA International members in good standing or become members if they weren't already. When we had a total of 6 founding members in place, we began work on our chapter charter. Actually, very little work was needed on our end to adapt the chapter charter that Brian provided. Primarily, all we needed to do was insert our student chapter's name into the appropriate positions and update our finances section based on our unique financial arrangement. We also added the name of our faculty advisor, Craig, the names of our interim board members, and the names of our founding members. Finally, we produced our petition to form a local UXPA chapter. For this document, all we needed to do was add the name of our student chapter, the names of our interim board members again, and the name of our founding members. After completing our 3 founding documents, we sent them to Brian for review, who promptly gave us the go-ahead to proceed. So the next step was the founding meeting itself. During the founding meeting, our founding members would vote on the bylaws and chapter charter. They would also sign our petition to form a local UXPA chapter. In advance of the meeting, we sent all 3 of these documents to the founding members for review. At the meeting itself, our founding members voted to approve the documents and signed the petition to form a local UXPA chapter. The interim board president, Kate Meisner, also signed the chapter charter. The approved and signed documents were then sent along to Brian, who submitted them to the UXPA International Board at their next board meeting. During the meeting, Brian motioned that we be recognized as a student chapter in good standing. We received word that we had been officially recognized as a new student chapter on January 12, 2017. After receiving approval, we went ahead and created our logo for the student chapter. Just a quick note, the specifications for student chapter logos are still being finalized, so if you're going to interested in forming your own student chapter, just be sure to check in with your regional director for guidance. So after that, we updated our email and social media channels so they would reflect our new affiliation, and we ended by sharing the exciting news with our school. So real quick, just to review, you'll see this on your screen. We reviewed available chapter formation documentation, connected with the international director. We established our core group of 10 UXPA International members, produced, reviewed, and internally approved, meaning we did that at our founding member meeting, and signed all those documents that sent them along to Brian, who submitted them to the UXPA International for final approval. After that, we updated our branding, email, social media channels, and announced our new affiliation. So just a couple of quick benefits about forming a UXPA student chapter within an academic institution. Your institution's student and alumni populations are going to form a built-in membership and officer pool. So you're really going to have a lot of people that kind of built in to help you with this help you with organization, and hopefully be interested in your events. Your institution may also be able to provide you with assistance to funding, and usually at least facilities. They'll give you a room at least to do your work in, which is exciting. In addition, you'll likely be able to take advantage of your institution's pre-established or already established methods for disseminating information, such as email chains, listservs, bulletin boards, etc. And I'm just going to end by just some takeaways to consider if you're interested in establishing your own UXPA student chapter. It's great to set deadlines for yourself and try to stick to them. It can be hard if you're doing schoolwork at the same time with deadlines and things, but if you just try to set realistic deadlines and stick to them, the process really will go much more smoothly. You shouldn't feel intimidated also. It's important to remember that you don't need to reinvent the wheel with your documents. If you adapt the documents for pre-existing chapters, much of the work really has been done for you. If you're unsure, ask questions. Your regional director is always going to be there to help you. And also just have fun, because you're getting in on the ground floor of an exciting new organization. So hopefully you will enjoy it. All right, and with that, I'm going to transition you to Mary Ellen, who is actually the current president of UXPA Pratt.
And now I don't have to introduce myself. I'm Mary Ellen Curley, and I'm trying to fill Charles's shoes here as president of the current UXPA group. And thanks to everybody for joining us. I wanted to give a shout out to anybody out there who is going to be building a student UXPA chapter. I have heard that there are pilot groups at the University of Texas and the University of Missouri, so that is fabulous. And if you're listening, we certainly wish you all the best. And if there's anything that we can do to help anybody, please get in touch with us. You can find us on Twitter. I can certainly say that the UXPA affiliation has been really wonderful for us. We've had some nice successes given this association, and with the help of Professor MacDonald and also the students who came before us. So here are some things I thought would be useful for anyone considering starting up a chapter. First, set a clear mission statement to remind yourselves and your student membership what you're about. This is ours, which is to enhance UX design and research skills and build relationships between Pratt students, Pratt alumni, and the Pratt professional UX community. We start every general meeting with this. Can't hurt to repeat. A big part of our role is to set up programming, so I thought I would talk about that. Basically, we try to do about 8 to 12 events every semester, and we start by asking for feedback. Like the excellent UX researchers that we are, we collect data. We survey our student group at various times to check in on the best timing, the best topics, and the best formats for our events. And we also send out a user survey after each event as well, so we can improve on what we're doing or stop doing it if it's not working well. We do invite UX professionals to meet and talk to us, and they actually love to help. They also love to talk. If you don't know that already, then you must be beginners, because UX people love to talk. We make use of Craig's contacts. Other professors know people. We know people. And then we just cold call. We will reach out to people we don't know, and they rarely refuse. Our alumni are also especially eager to give back. They're a great resource for us. So I would say don't be shy. Ask, right? The other important thing is to be programmatic. Set up your events with standardized formats. Here are some things that we do. We invite key speakers for 1-hour talks. Our most popular event to date was having Jennifer Romano-Bergstrom visit our program, and she did an amazing talk based on her expertise in eye tracking research and how that has an impact on UX design. And we really loved hearing her design stories that came from her experience from many places, including Facebook and Instagram. And it was really hard for her to get out of the room. So that was one of our really most enjoyable events. We do hold the 3-hour skills workshops on Saturdays. This Saturday coming up, we have we're going to imagine the future for 3 hours. We're going to do a UX research workshop which is really going to be fun, using speculative design practices, trend research, future foresight, and staging scenarios for exploration to imagine a day in 2027. So some of them are very creative. We also do workshops on networking, interviewing, resume building, and our student group has told us that they really like this kind of help and advice, and our alumni actually are really helpful in that regard. The portfolio reviews for our students who are close to graduation and need to fulfill that requirement and also have those portfolios ready for job applications, those are really useful. We invite an alumni professional to come and give critiques, and classmates participate as well, and these are really useful both for the person who's having the critique and for those who are participating. And in addition, we're lucky to be here in New York City. There are a ton of UX conferences every year, a lot of free resources as well. Sometimes we will buy tickets and raffle them off. We will go to free events together. We went to the World IA Day last spring, and it really inspired us to hear professionals do their thing. We set up tours of design firms and consulting businesses, and that helps build our networks and gives us real-world job awareness. And of course, we also hold brief general meetings once a month. At the start of the semester, we give everybody our contact info, we give them event info, we give them lists of extra resources, and then we follow up once a month. And this month we're having elections for 2 officers. 2 people are graduating. So we will introduce the new officers in our final meeting for the semester. Organizing your events with standardized formats really helps your officers do their jobs, which is important. You need to think about the user experience of your officers. If you do that, you can plan and promote and execute them with basic checklists, and Joe will be telling you a little bit more about how we do that. It helps your student colleagues develop a mental model of the formats, and they're more likely to attend when they know what to expect. It allows you to create a breakout event when you want to. We had a really cool UX-a-thon last spring that maybe we'll tell you a little bit more about if there's time. And perhaps most importantly, having set programming helps you get funded. So most of our events are funded by the Pratt Graduate Student Engagement Fund, which requires an application once a year. And I assume, hopefully most universities and institutions have something similar. And we don't know all of our event details that far in advance, but we know we'll probably need to fund, X number of workshops, X number of speakers, and buy some conference tickets. And that works well. We plug them in, and they're placeholders in our proposal. And that has gotten us the funding that we need. A final takeaway I'd want to give to other students who are starting up a group like this: start simple. Craig mentioned this as well. It gets you success early on. Take baby steps and build upon that. And also, for the sake of the people who follow you in the turnover, don't make something so complicated that the next president will want to change it 5 minutes after you've stepped down. Focus on your users and your fellow students, and make something that will stick. Okay, so now Joe's going to talk about our social media.
Hi, I'm Joe Polanco. I am a second-year Library and Information Science student. In addition to receiving my master's next spring, I will also earn an advanced certificate in user experience. When it comes to social media, it's new territory for us, relatively. I'm personally not a maven. I consider myself a beginner to intermediate practitioner. But it seemed when we started in support of the program and the new UXPA affiliation that we would want to build the student and industry and professional community using social media. First off, again, the model is really informed by studies and building engagement and community through social media, as well as literature concerning students and technology and academic libraries. This roadmap is in development and being implemented throughout the 2017 and 2018 school year. So the main goals were really to increase the profile of the graduate programs here. This is a school information in iSchool, and in addition to IXD and the library science program, there is also a degree in data analytics and visualization, as well as museum and digital culture. All of these have applications in UX. A second goal, not secondary, was to cultivate a supportive professional network. As Mary Ellen had mentioned, we do have a very active alumni community that's really been involved since Craig started to really develop the UX and a user experience coursework, and they are consistently involved. What we are hoping to develop is a stronger communication structure where once they are out in the field, that they have an open dialogue with the students, current students. So again, the community focus is the Pratt School of Information students and the alumni, as well as the UX information professionals and organizations. The audience that we're targeting again, just moving on to the activity focus is really information sharing and social interaction. The goal of connecting users with relevant content and building sustainable relationships. Luckily, with the activities and events that we have in place, we have a great platform to develop the social media communication. The first steps that I took when I started last semester was to really research the platforms, and that was pretty straightforward, is really through observation, looking at the activities on the existing platforms. We found that we had dormant Facebook, Tumblr, and Instagram platforms, and looked at where there was some activity, which is essentially Twitter. And when we look at the analyzing the activity on Twitter, we see that we're mostly focusing on one-way communication, broadcasting events, and making announcements, which we do through Twitter, but also through our listservs in the School of Information. So it was a bit duplicative. We have, our listserv has about 150 user experience related students and alumni, and our overall Pratt Information School has about 1,400. And we communicate all of the events Mary Ellen mentioned that way. So a second finding in analyzing the activity is that we are getting likes, but not sharing or retweeting. So the overall goal in creating a social media model is to create a structure around a social media plan that's going to create a dialogue. So currently in process, when we look at the content and strategy development, is to really try to invite this interaction by creating shareable content of high interest topics. So that could include news and blog posts relevant to the community, timely web sources. We're looking at, again, creating series, things like Twitter chats that we do in other library arenas, or something like a tip of the week, but something that kind of is expected every week. Also broaden the categories that we're communicating to go beyond school events and go out more into either UX products or bigger industry and companies. We also want to recognize and acknowledge what's going on in the industry and advances and things that people are talking about. Like we have had VR and AR activities. Also increasing the use of hashtags that could generate more followers. Is that what we're after? But also increase mentions of high-profile companies, industry leaders, and academics in leading schools. So again, this is like a work in progress, and we've started this fall, and you'll see our Twitter building. It's not there yet, but we have built a LinkedIn group, which is comprised of many of our alumni and many of the professionals that we've worked with here, and we anticipate that that's going to continue to grow. I'm looking forward to updating the UXPA family on our progress. And now I'd like to introduce Arushi, and she'll go through the website.
Hello, my name is Arushi, and I am the Vice President Webmaster of UXPA Pratt. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for joining us here today, and I'd be walking through the website making process for UXPA Pratt, which hasn't been launched yet, but we are working on it. So one of the major reasons for having the website was obviously having a web presence. And even though we have a lot of social media platforms, we wanted to put it all together in one common web-based platform. So in that website, we would want to describe about what we actually do and our relationship to Pratt and UXPA International and all of that. So the website in general would also serve as a platform to feature and promote our events and maintain an archive for our previous events that have been done over these few years. And of late, we have started documenting them a lot and maybe write more about them. And this, we are planning to do it through an interactive events calendar on the website, which again, we are working on. So also for the website, one of the key features that we are planning to develop is a platform for Pratt students, also who are also the members of UXPA and hopefully IXD students, to give them a platform in which we will be featuring their work and link to their professional profiles and portfolios or whatever they have built, especially related to their work. This actually aligns with our mission that Mary Ellen spoke about earlier, and this would be improving their overall web presence and hopefully connecting them to potential employers. Along with our current students, we would also be featuring our alumni in this section. This website will also have links to all our social media channels, obviously, and we also plan on creating a publishing platform on Medium, which will feature as a student's blog. So for this website, we definitely want to create evergreen content. So it would definitely have, describing our mission, vision, information about our IXD program and how it ties into the UXPA group. We would also are planning to introduce put team info, which will be changing as our officers do. But the main aim here is to have our website have low maintenance for our website and have evergreen content, and as well as content which would be planned and put at the same time as we are planning it. But the whole aim is to not make changes to it all day, every day, and increase our workload as students. And then that also ties into content governance, because as students, again, since our officers are changing every year, sometimes we have like transfer positions per semester. So we're trying to make this website platform as easy to use by everybody. So instead of hard coding this website, we plan to do it in a template-based format, so that all the officers, current and the future runs, will be able to use it without learning the need to code. So like I said, this website is still in the works, and I'm excited to launch this very, very soon. And once it is launched, the work will obviously not be done, but then we will constantly be testing with our users, who are the students, and continue making iterations to it. So yeah, and that marks the end of my talk, and I'm handing it over to Jen for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. I appreciate that you walked us through what it was like to get started and some recommendations that you have for others who are interested in starting a chapter. What do you think? So we have a few questions here. I'd like to start off with a difficult one. So what would you say is the most difficult thing about setting up a chapter? And then after you tell us about the most difficult thing about setting up the chapter, what would you say is the most difficult thing now about keeping a chapter open?
Okay. Oh, thanks, Jen. Yeah, basically, I guess I'll take over the difficult thing about establishing the chapter, since I was kind of heavily involved with actually doing that. I think the most difficult part for us was really just kind of navigating how a professional organization kind of fit into the financial and the regulatory, I guess, the facilities for our particular institution. We are in Manhattan, so there are we do have to consider security, things like that. And before, because everyone had been current students, there was really no issue about getting anybody access. But since we did transition to a more professional and, I guess, Pratt alumni, in our case, focus, that meant a lot of people who weren't current students would need to be given access to individual events. But I guess more at the beginning, I really feel like we were lucky, but I could anticipate the most difficult part of establishing the chapter is to just getting everybody together. We had already had 4 individuals, members who were interested in an interim chapter board. So that really we already had 4 in place. We did need to get 6 additional to make up the 10 individual members. 6 of them, like I said, were founding members. The other 4 were interim board chapter members. So getting that initial group of 10, essentially preparing the documents, setting them out for review, giving people time to look at them, making sure everybody could actually kind of physically come together for the founding meeting in order to approve, sign, and then present those to Brian, who sends them along to you guys at UXPA International. So I think there's a lot of moving parts. So really the most difficult part was just kind of getting everybody involved in the essentially the initial group. But like I said about actually preparing the documents, it's much easier than it might seem. A lot of the stuff has been done since student organization, since the student chapter, essentially the bylaws, how it's run and organized is going to be very similar to many other chapters. Really, all that hard work is done for you. It's just really trying to get a core group of people involved from the beginning. But I do feel like other institutions who already have programs based on anything related to UXPA, I'm sure it's going to be very easy for them to kind of generate interest.
Cool. So it sounds like sorry, I was just going to summarize. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, as far as going forward, you were asking about difficulties or anticipating going forward as a chapter. Having the UXPA association is the easiest part and really gives us such great grounding. I think otherwise it's more about having the student group, having the continuity and consistency turnover transition because each of us is here doing the job for maybe a year or so. So I'm, want to really make sure that I give a great handoff to somebody, at the end of the school year who will really take on what, all the good work that this group has done and that the group before me did. So that's kind of what I'm most concerned about.
So that actually leads well into the next question. And you mentioned that there, I believe, is going to be an election. So how often do new students get the opportunity to run for officer positions? And what is that transition like? What is the election process like? Do you have a formal election? Do they have to be students for a certain amount of years? Do they have to be attending events for a certain amount of time? How does all that work?
There is information in the bylaws, and officially we must have elections at least once a year, and our officers are supposed to be standing members of UXPA International. That may or may not change, I'm not sure. So that will be something to ask Kendall Warner about, who's on the screen here. We, as people graduate, and we have 2 people graduating, we actually have 5 officers because we wanted to have a webmaster and we added that into the picture. So we had enough people interested, and we've been lucky to have a lot of people interested. Our program is growing, and so we have more students, which is great. So we needed to do that. We needed to have to replace 2 people mid-year. So we have elections. In fact, I was elected mid-year last year too. So we have them as needed. It would be at the end of each semester, but certainly at the end of next semester, it will be. We'll probably need to replace, I think, all 5 of us potentially. And usually you want to serve for a year in your role, right?
Yeah. So this is Craig. So from experience, we've actually never had a case where going out of 1 year that all the officers are being replaced all at once. There's always been at least 1 or 2 officers that have been sort of moving forward with it. I think because everyone starts the program at a different place and does it on a different path, there's always openings in the fall semester. Students who come in often then stay through the following fall semester. There's always a little bit of continuity, which means that there are always chances for new students to be involved. Maybe not in their first semester. A lot of them actually don't want to be involved in the first semester. Actually, I've heard students say, I recommend they do it. They said, oh, I'm not ready yet, but maybe next semester. And then I'll sort of go back to them and say, hey, there's an opportunity. You should do this. And they say, oh, I've already done it. So a lot of times it takes care of itself, but there's lots of opportunities throughout the year, throughout the program actually, for students who want to be involved.
Okay. You mentioned the bylaws. Can you tell us a little bit more about the bylaws? Is that something you've mentioned numerous times, like there were templates and things that Brian and Kendall provided for you. Was that the same with the bylaws, or did you create those from scratch?
Well, we actually, because we actually had bylaws in place because we had been an unaffiliated student organization. We did actually have, what we did was more update our bylaws to fit into the UXPA's mission. But basically, if we had just started from scratch, really there would be no reason that we couldn't essentially just kind of do slight alterations to the provided bylaw for a student chapter. So we're a little bit different in that regard, but there's really no reason if you were interested in essentially starting a new chapter from scratch to just kind of build off the bylaws created rather than update pre-existing bylaws.
Okay, great. Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. I'd love to talk a little bit more about your events. So, and I didn't give a plug. I just want to say, I know you mentioned that the event that I spoke at was really successful. Can you tell us about any other really successful events that you've had?
I think the most successful event, other than yours, Jen, was last spring. We did a UX-a-thon, which was a full day Saturday event that took a lot of planning on Charles' part. So I wanted him to explain what it was. And we worked with Planned Parenthood, which was really great timing. It was a really necessary event. It was really great to be able to do something with that organization. And Craig actually stepped in and was more involved in the event, and we really needed him to be involved as well. So tell him about it.
Yeah, basically, Planned Parenthood contacted us about doing an event. So over a couple of months of planning, we came to essentially a design prompt. They were looking to have some help for a particular section of their website that wasn't really working well on mobile. So what we did is we planned a day-long event. Craig did a really great job kind of introducing the prompt, kind of running through how essentially what it was a kind of design sprint type situation. So we kind of developed how a design sprint would be run. We did user testing. We brought in actually users to our school. So we had the whole floor. We essentially would kind of cycle through users, so they got actual real-life user tests. They worked in groups, so it was very collaborative. Pretty kind of high pressure, but it was a lot of fun because it was such a limited time. We just had one day. So they did do some low fidelity prototyping. They did the user testing. They did kind of cyclical ideation, and then at the end we actually got the opportunity to present each group got the opportunity to present their findings in a formal presentation to actual clients, in this case Planned Parenthood, who were on site. So it was really a great event. I feel like it got people really engaged with working in teams, kind of seeing every step of the process in a research and design. I guess. What would you say?
It was really successful.
Yeah, it was
really
a lot of fun.
Exciting and got everybody really kind of jazzed. And the Planned Parenthood, as a client, I think they really loved our ideas.
Yeah, I was speaking to the Planned Parenthood representatives throughout the day, and they were just all walking around with these huge smiles on their faces because they were just so happy and so excited that a group of people who hadn't really engaged with this problem before were looking at these things and taking them in different ways that they hadn't ever considered. So it was a really great collaboration.
I think it was a huge value to them.
Yeah.
They were getting free UX research and design ideas.
Right.
So it works both ways. And we shouldn't forget that, because it's useful for other student groups to know that they're presenting a value in situations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much. We are at time, so we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and for telling us about how you were able to set up your successful chapter. It's been really awesome. I can say that as the UXPA International President, it's been really awesome to have such a successful student chapter, and I love the work that you all are doing. So thank you so much. I'm really happy that it's working out for you all. And thanks for participating in this webinar with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, take care. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.